Ever wondered what really happens in those hidden corners of the world? The secret societies, the ones with these rigid codes and, well, reputations for brutal enforcement. What truly goes on inside? Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're pulling back the curtain a bit on the Japanese Yakuza, but this isn't some dry academic thing. We've got 4 unsettling true stories, really chilling glimpses into the life, the rules, and the terrifying consequences inside this notorious crime syndicate. These are accounts from people caught up in it, members, associates, sometimes just bystanders who saw something they shouldn't have. And just a heads up, some of what you're about to hear is, frankly, pretty disturbing. It's a raw look at a world where human life, well, sometimes it doesn't seem to count for much.
Yeah, before we jump into those stories, it's probably helpful to have a little context. The Yakuza aren't just, gangsters like in the movies. They're established organized crime groups in Japan. And they're known for these incredibly strict codes. Brutal, really. You might have heard of yubitsume, the ritual finger cutting. That's a real thing, a penance for mistakes. And they're not insignificant. Back in 2015, estimates put their numbers around 100,000 members. That's a huge presence. So understanding that structure, that scale, it helps frame the kind of stories we're about to hear. It makes the horror, unfortunately, more understandable within that context.
Definitely sets a grim stage. Okay, let's get into the first story. This one was told by someone who knew a former Yakuza member, a guy named Kenji. At the time this happened, Kenji was basically a newbie, just an errand boy getting drinks, cigarettes, that sort of thing. He'd been kind of half forced into it and was actually thinking about quitting. Then he gets this task. A Yakuza member gives him a car key, a map to a scrapyard maybe 20 kilometers out of town. Instructions were simple. Just take the car there, hand it over for disposal. He was told, this is your first real job. So Kenji does it, drives the car out there. He learned pretty fast. You don't ask too many questions in that world. It's just safer not to. He gets to the scrapyard, and there are a couple of guys waiting. One walks up, asks, is this Kyo's car? Kenji say, yeah. The guy just nods, says, okay, get out, give me the key. Kenji hands it over, watches as the guy drives the car, parks it right between these 2 huge iron plates. Then the guy gets out, signals someone in like a control booth, and these massive plates start moving, slowly crushing the car flat. Here's the part that sticks with you. Kenji, when he was telling his friend this story later, he paused, got this look on his face. He said, right as the plates started crushing the car, he heard a scream from inside the car. And then, as the plates got closer, there was this definite splattering sound. He was adamant it was not the sound of metal crunching. He never looked in the trunk before he drove it there. He never asked the Yakuza guy who gave him the job. He just had this really bad feeling. Said the whole thing made him feel, quote, truly sick.
Wow. Yeah, that's chilling. And what really just shows, I think, is how these groups often mix the mundane with the absolutely horrific. It's almost calculated. Give the new guy a simple task, deliver the car, but it's wrapped around this unspeakable act. It creates this detachment, and the implied threat is enormous. You saw something, maybe heard something, but you don't question it. Because questioning it could mean you're next. It's a brutal form of initiation almost, testing loyalty and silence right from the start.
That idea of desensitization is terrifying. Okay, the next story. This one's also incredibly grim. It came from a friendly Yakuza member, apparently. It involves a younger Yakuza member and his friend. Their routine, apparently, was finding women, often using drugs, maybe aphrodisiacs, to coerce them. So one day, the young Yakuza goes out alone because his friend is sick. He brings a woman back to a hotel room. He injects her with something, some drug, and she just dies unexpectedly. Maybe an overdose, maybe a bad reaction, who knows, but she's dead. He panics, obviously, terrified of the police getting involved. So he runs straight to his boss, apparently crying, begging for help. The boss, maybe this wasn't the first time something like this happened, tells him, okay, calm down, bring the body to the office. So the young Yakuza feels a bit relieved, goes back, gets a sick friend. They have to somehow drag this woman's body out of the hotel room without anyone seeing. They manage it, get her into a car, race over to the Yakuza office. But when they get there, the situation goes from bad to catastrophic. They show the body to the boss, and the boss's face just freezes. Turns out, and there's no way the young guy could have known this, the woman was a relative of a high-ranking member, a general, in a rival Yakuza group.
Oh, no. That's the worst possible scenario.
Exactly. If her body is found, especially with drug traces, it points straight back to their group. And that means war. Full-blown gang war, something they absolutely want to avoid. So even though it's like 2 a.m., the boss calls in a few more guys, they all get in cars, the boss, the young guy, the sick friend, the reinforcements, and they drive deep into the mountains for hours. Then they start digging a really, really deep hole. Meticulous work, making sure she'd never be found. It's around 5 a.m. now. Sun's starting to come up. They finally finish digging. The friend, the sick one, is told to dump the body in. He does it, turns around, ready to start filling the hole. And suddenly, the other Yakuza members grab him. They wrap his arms and legs in duct tape. Fast. He struggles, but it's useless. And in that instant, he realizes what's happening. The boss hadn't just planned to get rid of the body. He'd planned to get rid of the culprit too, the young Yakuza who caused the problem, his friend. They pick him up, drop him in the hole, right next to the woman's body. And they start shoveling dirt. Buried alive.
That story it lays bare the absolute ruthlessness. Preventing a war between gangs, protecting the organization itself, that trumps everything. Everything. Loyalty, friendship, basic humanity, it all goes out the window if the group's survival is threatened. That internal justice is terrifying. You're useful until you become a liability. And then you're disposable. Instantly, no hesitation. It really shows how that code of loyalty they preach. It only applies when convenient for the bosses.
Such a brutal calculation. Okay, story number 3. This one's different. A public event witnessed by a university student. He's at an izakaya, a Japanese pub with his friend. Sitting at the counter, he notices this woman, maybe early 30s, drinking alone at a table on the far side. Very elegant, black dress, high heels. Looked kind of out of place, he thought. He and his friend talked about maybe going over, but they were too intimidated. He said later he was incredibly glad they didn't. After a while, this guy walks in, around 40, muscular, wearing a sharp black suit. Looked like a businessman, maybe. He walks straight over to the woman's table, no expression, just walks up to her. The student narrator leans over to his friend, thinking, oh, she must have been waiting for him. And right then, crack, the man punches the woman square in the face. Not a slap, a full-on hard punch. She crumples to the floor, didn't even have time to yell. Then the guy jumps on her, starts hitting her. Over and over, from every angle, just pummeling her. The entire bar just froze, dead silent. Everyone staring, completely stunned, shocked, but also scared. You could feel the fear. All you could hear was this horrible sound, thud, thud, thud. The sound of his fists hitting her. She wasn't really conscious, just sort of moaning sometimes. The student said he was just paralyzed, thinking, he's gonna kill her. If he keeps hitting her like that, she'll die. But nobody moved. Everyone knew instinctively this guy was probably Yakuza. Getting involved, that would be insane. Suicidal, maybe. Then the man stopped. Just stopped hitting her. He knelt down, grabbed her by the neck to lift her up. And as he lifted her, something heavy fell from his jacket or waistband onto the floor with a thump. It was a revolver. He calmly bent down, picked up the gun, stuffed it back wherever it came from. Then he dragged the woman beaten, face completely messed up, out of the bar, didn't say a single word the entire time. The student never found out who she was, why it happened, what became of her, just gone. He guessed maybe she worked for a pimp who was Yakuza, or she'd insulted him somehow. But the sheer public violence, unforgettable.
And that public nature is key, isn't it? It's not just about punishing the woman, whatever she supposedly did. It's a performance. It's a demonstration of power, of impunity. It tells everyone else in that bar, everyone who hears about it, this is what we can do. We can do it anywhere, anytime, and nobody can stop us. That fear is the real weapon. It paralyzes people, ensures silence, reinforces their control over territory and people. The violence itself is horrific, but the psychological impact on everyone who witnesses it, that ripple effect of fear, that's just as important to how they operate.
That paralysis, that fear, it really is the common thread. Okay, our last story. This one's from a salesman, looking back at something truly traumatic from when he was 16. He used to hang around with this older guy, kind of a delinquent, named Ichi. Describes him as short, like 150 centimeters, maybe 5 feet tall, had a punch perm. Apparently, Ichi was always high on paint thinner or solvents or just drunk. And a pathological liar, not exactly a great influence. Somehow, through Ichi, they got this part-time cleaning job for a small Yakuza outfit. The narrator, being just a kid, says they treated him okay. But Ichi, they were always yelling at him. He was apparently clumsy, stupid, lied badly, just useless at the job. Then Ichi makes a massive mistake. High as a kite, he goes to Soapland, basically a brothel, and tries to sexually assault one of the workers. Now, maybe that could have been handled quietly, but this specific woman, she happened to be the girlfriend, the squeeze of one of the gang members. We'll call him X. X finds out, calls Ichi into the Yakuza office while the narrator's there cleaning. Ichi starts rambling, making excuses, clearly terrified. X isn't listening. He just walks over, picks up a golf club that was leaning against the wall, and just starts beating Ichi's face with it, savagely. The narrator said he was scared shitless, thought he was going to throw up, said the beating felt like it went on for hours. By the end, Ichi's face was just destroyed, legs broken, looked like he was barely alive, on the verge of death. X finally stops beating, looks over at the narrator and another Yakuza member who's there, tells them to drag Ichi out to a van. The narrator's freaking out, doesn't want anything to do with it, but he's forced to help. Then X tells him to drive the van. They drive way out, deep into the mountains, some isolated warehouse. X drags Ichi inside. The narrator and the other Yakuza guy follow. The narrator just wants to leave, doesn't care about Ichi at this point, but X turns to him, holds out a rope with a noose tied in it, looks him right in the eye, and says calmly, "You're going to kill him." The narrator just lost it, started crying, begging X. He said he'd always kind of acted tough, maybe even fantasized about being Yakuza someday. But in that moment, facing the reality of actually killing someone, he knew he couldn't do it. He was not cut out for it. His refusal just seemed to make X angrier. X grabs him by the hair, starts slapping him. Hard, again and again. Then the slaps turn into punches. The narrator doesn't even know how long it lasted. Just remembers feeling this dull ache all over his face by the end, and then X stops hitting him. Ichi, who'd been unconscious, starts to stir on the floor. X lets go of the narrator, picks up a baseball bat. The other Yakuza member grabs one too, and they both just start smashing Ichi in the face with bats from all sides. Ichi was somehow still clinging to life through all this. After that, the narrator's memory gets fuzzy. He remembers the other Yakuza guy taking him back to the van. Doesn't recall much else. A few days later, he sees an article in the local paper. Headline, "Youngster high on drugs falls off bridge." That was Ichi. The narrator, telling this years later, said he doesn't feel guilty. Says it wasn't his fault, but he just needed someone to listen, needed to tell the story.
My God, that's about as dark as it gets. And it perfectly illustrates that mechanism of control we talked about earlier, but taken to the absolute extreme, forcing him to be there, forcing him to drive, trying to force him to commit the murder itself. It wasn't just about killing Ichi. It was about breaking the narrator. It binds him to them through shared trauma, through complicity, even if forced. How could he ever go to the police after that? He was involved, albeit unwillingly. That silence isn't just demanded. It's manufactured through these incredibly brutal experiences. It ensures loyalty, or at least paralysis, far more effectively than simple threats ever could. The psychological chains are just as strong as physical ones.
It's just, yeah. These stories, they paint such a grim, unforgettable picture of that world, a place where these codes, these hierarchies, they justify absolute brutality, where mistakes, even small ones, can have the most terrifying consequences. And the line between any kind of order and just pure terrifying chaos seems incredibly thin. Human life feels so fragile in these accounts.
It really does. And these stories, they're a powerful, chilling reminder of the realities that can exist just beneath the surface of what we see every day. They force you to confront the gap between any kind of romanticized image of organized crime and the actual, often senseless brutality involved. And that fear we've heard about in every story, it becomes its own kind of prison, doesn't it? Ensuring silence, making sure the cycle continues, makes you wonder, what other stories like this are out there, happening right now, maybe in the shadows of our own communities that we just never, ever hear about?
That's a deeply unsettling thought to end on. We really hope this deep dive, as disturbing as it was, gave you a unique perspective, a glimpse into a world thankfully hidden from most of us. If you found these stories compelling, if you want to explore more hidden realities, more dark corners, and unsettling truths from horrific cases, then please do subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs, hit like, share it if you think others should hear these accounts, and join us next time as we journey into another unknown. Thanks for listening.